Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Teen Talks. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is a #1 international best-selling author, a high-performance parenting coach, a TEDx speaker, a Tony Robbins senior leader. He's been featured on the likes of ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox News. He has spoken at Yahoo, Amazon, eBay, and many other big corporations. With experience studying alongside Stanford and Harvard psychologists for the past 2 decades. Please join me in welcoming Allan Ting.
Woohoo! Superstar.
Hi, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be on this podcast, this show.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you. Hey, Allan, I mean, those are like great accolades. But I know you as I met you at GYLS, which we've already talked about on this podcast, the Tony Robbins Foundation program for teenagers. And both of us, we were both captains. I believe you were a captain, and you and I served on the medical team. I don't know why I was on the medical team, but you rocked it. And it was, I just felt a connection with you. I just think you're an amazing spirit, and the love you have for kids and their parents is outstanding. I mean, you have a lot to bring to the table, and that's why we thought you would be a great asset for the parents, our listeners out there who really could use a little bit of, help. It's not the easiest job in the world. That's for darn sure.
It is definitely not. What's that saying? It takes a village to raise a kid, right?
Yeah, it does. It truly does. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal life, like your family and all those things?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much because we are a very active family, and what that means for us is we're always on the go. We're always doing something. So even before I had a kid, when my wife, at the time girlfriend, we used to do just everything we could. We traveled to like Japan. We traveled to China, to Taiwan. We traveled a lot. We love rock climbing. We love water rafting. Just anything adventurous. We just go out and do it. And then after we had a kid, and we're like, well, we still love to do all this stuff because we love to travel and experiences. And by the way, we're also foodies too. How do we incorporate all of this so that we love the experience and we instill the experience with our kid? So believe it or not, when my daughter Sienna, she was like almost 1 year old, we took her to Japan.
Oh wow!
So on airplane, I never knew about this, but there's a little like carrier that you can stick up. So she slept on that. Her head and her feet was just big enough to hold. Anything more than that, we had to buy her an additional seat, right? So
that's so cool.
So that's really started our journey. We've been a really active family ever since then.
And how old is she now?
She's 9 years old.
9 years old. Okay.
Wow, growing up fast.
They do grow up really fast.
Wow. So you didn't really let being a parent change your life that much.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Going through some of the Tony's events, and I quickly picked up some of the fathers felt like they think about this, right? So you got this burly, like Harley Davidson rider who's free, like just do whenever he wants, whatever he wants, and all of a sudden he's married, he's got kids, and he's feeling suicidal.
Oh my God.
And if you never heard this intervention before, so basically Tony calls him up and he's like, I want to commit suicide. In fact, I even want to kill the entire family. Right? So what do you do in that situation? And it turns out that he felt that his freedom got taken away. Mm-hmm. So he feels trapped. He feels vulnerable. He feels like nothing he can do can break out of this jail cell. At least that's kind of his metaphor. So for me, it's all about modeling. As simple as it sounds, is when somebody's doing it right, what are they doing it right? So what are their patterns? Mm-hmm. What are their mindset? What do they do day to day? What are their strategies? And as simple as that sounds, just model off of that, and you can have that brilliant life too. So for me, I love riding motorcycles, right? And you probably heard this too, that the day that you get married, your motorcycle is gone.
I
So,
have heard that. Yes.
right. So before I got married, I told my girlfriend that back then at the time, like, there's a couple of things you got to know about me. Number one is somewhere, somehow down the road, I love to go to developing countries and build schools.
Mm.
That's where my heart is at. It's wrapped around philanthropy work. The second thing is, please do not ask me to quit motorcycles because I will be miserable. I understand the consequences. I understand that, if I get hurt, all that stuff. I'm not here to you know, berate on anybody or any moms or wives, but that's not what I'm getting at. Because I personally believe that I'm here on this earth for a reason, and it's not time for me to go yet. So I think I'll be okay.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I know. I think I think the reason that all three of us are here right now, because we know we're here for a reason. We know we're here to help people.
Yeah.
We know it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Allan, you mentioned Tony Robbins, right? You've been part of the Tony Robbins space for a really long time, and you have experienced a lot. You've gotten a lot of knowledge from that, and I'm sure you've also been able to apply it to your life. What advice would you give to parents who, are struggling with this experience of parenting, using that experience and that knowledge that you have gained from the Tony world?
Funny you mentioned that. I was just talking to my wife about the other day, because literally, I've been with Tony. So I've been listening to this, how old I am, right? I listened to his tapes back in the late 90s, and I
Wow.
transitioned over to CDs, right? And I used to walk around with this, Discman,
Yeah.
around Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. I used to go running. I go listen to it. Completely changed my life. And
Mhm.
my first live event was 05, and then I became a senior leader in 2013. So I've been as a senior leader for over the last 10 years. Where I'm getting at is, when you have been to enough events, and I lost count, right? At least 20, 30 events, you start seeing these patterns. And these pattern emerges where most people stand up in a crowd and talk about their problem, and it all has to do with their parents.
Mm.
Every single one of them. Like, I'll give you specific stories. There's one guy says, you know what? I hate my dad. We'll tone the language down. But anyway, he's a bleep, 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 right? And because he took my piano away.
Mm.
And Tony goes, okay, that's horrible. So you feel like your father never gave you a chance for you to go play instruments? Yeah, that's right. I hated him for that. Well, so what happened? Why did he give your piano away? Well, he gave it to my sister. That's not fair, because that's my piano. Why did he give it to his sister? Because I want to go play. Well, so let's find out. So did you actually like the piano? No, I absolutely hated playing the bleep, bleep, bleep piano. So let me get this straight. Your dad gave the piano to your sister to go practice because she loves it, and you hate practicing piano, and now you hate him for it. So think about the logic of this arc of the story, right? It's pretty
Mhm.
funny, but then you're like, huh, that's really interesting. And you hear these type of stories over and over and over again, where the kids always blaming their parents. So going back to your question, Rohan, first thing we got to know is, it's universal. I believe that we all blame our parents for something. Why we do that is because we are not perfect, and we need to accept that. Or I like to invite you to accept that. We're never going to be perfect. We're humans. There's no such thing as perfection, right? You guys get it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys ever talk about this, but perfection, if you think about it, is the lowest form of standard.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is, when you're already perfect, it's actually kind of boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's another level that you can go up.
Yeah.
And that dehumanizes us, because that's at a level we can never reach.
Mhm.
And if I can dovetail to another story about perfection, is back in I think in the 90s, you guys ever heard of Christy Yamaguchi? For you guys a
Yep.
little bit younger, so you might not heard of her. So
Mhm.
she's a gold medalist Olympian in figure skating. So, right, she won the gold Olympic. She came back really famous, and I got a chance to go watch her skate in this whole like things that she put together. I think it was around for charity for kids, around for books
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So what happened was when she was skating, she fell. She fell when she did a double axel, and I was like, yes, yes, that makes her human,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
then she gets back up and she starts skating again, and guess what? She fell again.
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, I loved it. Because what happened is that gives me the power of vulnerability to say, you know what? I don't have to be perfect.
Mm.
I'm just like her. I mean, she's a gold medalist and she can fall. Why can't I fall?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that gave permission for me to fall.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's really great. I think oftentimes parents feel like they have to be perfect. Well, there is no perfect parenting, and there is no one way either. And then oftentimes our kids feel like they have to be perfect because if they don't get that A, if they don't get, it has to be this. I see so many kids that I've worked with that they feel like, for one, I gotta make my parents proud. uh I gotta get A's on this or I'm a failure. I've got to, all this stuff. And it's just not realistic because like you said, we are human. It's not possible. And it's boring. It's boring. Yeah, there's no excitement, there's no risk, there's no yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I can offer you a glimpse of, because sometimes as adults, we forget what it feels like to be teens, right? And teens nowadays are even more complicated than what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember like when I was a teen in high school, I would get these accolades. I would get all like these specific positions and leadership positions, and I always devalue myself. So,
Mm,
for example, in ninth grade,
interesting.
I want to get into leadership, so I got into student council, right? And you got to give a speech so people will vote for you. And then I gave my speech, I gave my heart out, and nobody voted for me because nobody knows me. I'm Mr. Not popular.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like a failure. I'm like, here I am, I tried my heart out, I did my best, and I failed. So equals I'm a failure.
Mm.
And then what happened was, like maybe a month later, so in order for you to stay at the student council or council, you have to minimally be 3.0 or above GPA. So one of the guys got kicked out because he didn't meet his minimum requirements. So they like, hey, Allan, you're one of the finalists. Would you like to come back? I'm like, great. And isn't that a great thing to be part of the leadership student council?
Mm-hmm.
In my mind,
Yeah.
is like, I'm not good enough.
Mm.
I didn't get picked draft one, even though I came in. It doesn't count.
Yeah.
And that's how I lived my entire life. This is before GYLS, right? So you guys, you had an opportunity. I didn't
Mhm.
know any about this. So I kept on constantly beating myself over and over. And the principle I like to share with you, the audience out there, is success builds on top of success. Success does not build on top of failure
Mm.
because it's all about mindset. So here I am. I've won these. I got these accolades. I became, leadership position, and I was also an ROTC. I got Cadet of the Year. Didn't count. I wasn't good enough.
Mm.
So I kept on beating myself. And even though I was building the success, I kept on sabotaging it on the bottom because it was never good enough, and everything fell apart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It affected my attitude. It affected like, I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. I'm not smart enough. I'm dumb. Everybody else is so great.
Mm.
And I never give myself credit because I was always really hard on myself.
Yeah.
The reason why I share that with you and with the audience is because chances are that's what your kids is going through.
Mm-hmm.
This is the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, our current world makes things even harder because now you have social media. You have
Mm.
the Instagram, you have the TikToks. and everybody's showing how great they are,
Yeah.
this facade, right? But nobody ever talk about the behind the scenes stuff, right? Simple experiments. Actually, I'll be interested in doing this social experiment. Go to Facebook, go look at everybody's feed. I guarantee you 99.9% everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're eating some amazing food. They're traveling somewhere. They just have this great experiences. They dress really sharp. They dress really pretty, have all this makeup on. Everybody's happy.
Mm.
Nobody's telling you, like, I'm going through a crisis right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Nope.
true.
Nobody's saying, like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. Nobody says that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
But how do you compete with that? That's the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, a little girl's like, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough.
Mm-hmm.
Little boys might be, I'm not strong enough. Look at that big bicep. I don't have that. I could never get that.
Right.
And they start beating themselves.
Mm.
And what's worse, I think I want to tie this all loop together, is that when we parent as like our kids is not enough, they're not perfect enough, we lose that connection. So
Mm.
number one, they already beat themselves even more with the current culture. And number two, when we lose that connection, we're beating them up. We're adding on additional pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So if the outcome is for your children to succeed in life, again, going back, success only builds on top of success.
Yeah.
And that success is built on mindset.
Mm.
And the mindset is the growth mindset, which is, I might not learn it now. I might not have that bulging bicep, but I can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It goes back to the idea of, Tony says this all the time, where focus goes, energy flows, right? What you
Mhm.
focus on, that is what your reality becomes. If you are focusing on the negative all the time, then you're going to be miserable. It's inevitable. But if you're focusing on the positive, you're focusing on the growth, the improvement, the progress, the evolution, that's when you've unlocked something different within, where you're seeing things from a different point of view, right? And it's funny you mentioned the thing about social media. Nowadays, they say, like, on social media, that's like a highlight reel of your life. You're posting like the pictures where you look good. You're posting the moments in your life where you were happy, you were enjoying things, but it's literally seconds. You're
Yeah.
you're 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 capturing these seconds of your life, which is nothing compared to everything else, these layers and these stacks of things that you're experiencing on a day to day. And it's something to be super mindful as parents, I'm sure, and even as teens, knowing that social media is such a big part of their lives and they're on social media all the time, right? That's the new reality, I want to say. So it's really important to keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
in addition to that, this is where part I get geeked out, right? Because we have the mindset part, but I also want to understand the scientific part. So
Hmm.
the part where I study with Stanford's, psychologists and Harvard psychiatrists, and kind of understanding the brain, the kind of behind the scenes. And let's maybe kind of quickly talk about from a foundation, and
Hmm.
it starts with understanding critical development periods. And what that means is it's critical development periods between age 3 to 14 years old. And during that period, this is where our brain is developing. Part of the reason why the kids can't control their emotions, if you think about, from toddler from infant to toddler, they're crying so much, they're just throwing this temper tantrum, is because they can't control their prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is basically a decision process, an executive decision process. They can't control the emotions.
Right.
Yeah.
So what they do is they have to rely on their limbic system, which is basically their reptilian brain. So the reason why, like, we're always looking at what's wrong, right? Like, this is your fault, like, you're not good enough, is because if you think about it, our brain is not designed to be happy. I
Mm.
say again, our brain is not designed to be happy. Our brain is designed to survive.
Mm-hmm.
In order to survive, you got to see what's wrong.
Yeah.
So this is a level of consciousness, right? So level one is awareness, understand that where our brain is designed, what's wrong. Because back in, 1,000 years old, or 1,000 years ago, we're sitting by the campfire, we're all chatting just like this, and all of a sudden, the blade of grass goes like this. what do? What's that? Shh. What's going on?
Yeah.
There's a predator. So our reptilian brain is always wired to see what's wrong.
Yeah.
Our reptilian always wired to see what's wrong. And
Mhm.
what happened is if we keep on conditioning that and conditioning with our kids, they're going to also pick that up too, because they're already doing it already. And here's what happened, right? So let me kind of talk about more about the critical development period. If you guys haven't heard about the failure to thrive syndrome, so basically these orphan kids, they're part of the they're part of the orphanage, and the nuns would hold them, but then they have so many kids, they don't have time to hold every single one of them. And if a kid is born and not touched within a week, the kid dies, literally stops breathing.
Wow.
So failure to thrive syndrome, right? Because we crave human touch. Think about it. If your mother's out there, you know what I'm talking about. The moment you give birth, what does your doctor say? What
Yeah.
does your
Hold.
mind? Got to hold your baby.
Yep.
Go get into breastfeeding, right? And that's the critical moment. It starts with that. And then there are many other studies. One in particular that struck out to me. Literally, I came back from this trauma workshop this past weekend, studying with #1 New York Times bestseller. He said that what they did was they studied. This is really cool, by the way. They studied with these young monkeys, and what they did was they took these young monkeys away from the mothers and kind of grouped them all together. And then they let them live for like a couple of weeks, and then they put them back into the group. But what happened is the monkeys created this trauma in their head, and every single one of them became very hostile. Hostile to the group, even hostile to the mom.
Wow.
So it's because what happened is during trauma process, what that trauma process looks like in our brain is because you guys familiar with the left brain and the right brain, right? So the left brain is more of the logical brain. So the linguistic, the sequential, the analytical side, right? The right brain is more the artistic side. So what that means is like the emotional parts, the intuition, the space and time, is the touch and smell. And what happened is during trauma, when you talk to trauma survivors, they keep living in the past as if that kept on going over and over and over again, because that it blocks them. It blocks from the left brain and the right brain, and that's when the reptilian brain kicks in.
Yeah.
Especially our what's called an amygdala. That's what's also known as the smoke detector. Anytime they see a sign of danger, their smoke detector goes off. They go into that fight or flight mode, that survival mode, right? And what trauma, when we talk about trauma, like, okay, well, Alan, right, trauma is like maybe a car accident, or, trauma is like, getting somebody's left leg chopped off, that's major trauma. Those are all trauma by default, but there's also variant degrees of trauma that I share with our audience, right? It could be something as simple as parent constantly yelling at our kids.
Yeah.
And that became a very traumatic experience. To the point where, when they're in an adolescent, they get their heart broken. You ever hear like, oh, when their heart is broken, my heart is broken, my life is over, I'll never find another soulmate, I'll never find another boyfriend, never find another girlfriend.
That was just happened to my son a few months ago.
They're traumatized and they're stuck because their left brain and right brain are not talking to each other. Limbic system, that smoke detector gets hijacked their brain. Remember, I told you our brain is not built for happiness. Our brain is built for survival, because they have such traumatic event. They don't want to repeat that process over and over. Right? Because now they associate all the relationship as bad. Is that true? Yeah. Can be, but if you don't try, how are you going to find out who's
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And the key telltale sign is they'll talk about that experience over and over. Right? So it could be a rape, somebody who got raped, their entire body shuts down. But let's talk about more like the day-to-day, like the parenting stuff, right? Because let me share with this story. When I met this kid, one of my daughter's friend, and at the time she was 8 years old, she's 9 now. And I just feel like, this kid is not acting her age. And when I say that is she doesn't have joy. She's not, when she plays, she's laughing and happy and stuff like that. But default, there's that energy vibration. It's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very dark. It's very dense. It's very deep.
And it shouldn't be that way in an 8-year-old.
Not for an 8-year-old,
No.
right? And what I found out is through the interaction. Again, I hope all this I'm bringing this up is I'm not here to point fingers. That's never my intent. The intent is more of it's enlightenment. It's understanding. It's understanding patterns. And I'm not here to blame any parents by any means. And I myself gone through trauma. I'm not here to blame my parents because the thought process is called intergenerational trauma.
Mm.
You get passed down from trauma from your parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. So
Yeah.
who do you blame? You can't, right? And just think about the best thing is to do is they're doing the best. We're all doing our best that we can do at this given moment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's all really it is. So anyhow, go back to that little girl, the 8-year-old. Turns out that she got yelled at a lot. Okay. So for example, well, mom and dad's already stressed because they own a restaurant. And when when she goes to ask for mom or help on her math problem, the dad yells at her, "Go figure it out yourself." Because mom needs to help me right now in the kitchen. And they have competing priorities.
Mhm.
So meanwhile, she feels like she's not supported. Meanwhile, she's like, I'm frustrated because I'm getting yelled by the teacher and I feel dumb. I feel I'm not good enough and I'm not getting support.
Yeah.
You guys getting this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes a
That
lot of sense.
that created trauma in her. And how that shows up, the reason why I know is recently my kid and then they went out for a hike. And they're about to climb a tree on a hike. And she starts crying.
Mm.
She cries a lot. I'm like, why are you crying? Because I wore the wrong shoes. Because I can't climb with the other kids. Not enough. I'm not strong enough. I can't climb. I wore the wrong shoes. I am not perfect.
Mm.
Because I am not perfect, I'm not good enough.
Mhm.
You guys getting this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that trauma condition over and over and over again. And now she's living with it.
Yeah. It goes
Wow.
back to kind of what, I mean, that specific is, Rehan and I have talked a lot about the words that we use or the tone or whatever. Every little thing adds up. And we, as parents, it's hard because yeah, we're stressed. We're doing all this stuff. But what we do, it's taken a different way. They don't understand. They don't understand that we're stressed. They just take it on themselves as, uh-oh, I made my mom mad, or, I did this. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets even worse. So everybody's stressed out. And because I'm always looking at root causes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the root cause is the mom and dad's relationship. And many traumas that I've seen, oftentimes the dad is aloof. The dad's mentally checked out. The mom is the one that's doing everything. Not only that, nowadays the mom is also working, and by that time she comes home, she's also cooking and doing laundry, or doing house, all their chore stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the mom gets stressed out when, what's that saying? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
So now mom's all stressed out. I'm like, okay, we gotta put all the attention to mom, right? So that
Yeah.
kind of works until it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the classic stories I read recently, I learned recently was mom and dad were arguing and they're fighting. They want to get a divorce, and then the kid runs away. 10 years old, 10-year-old daughter runs away, and then they went to go see a counselor or a therapist, and the therapist was like to the daughter, I'm like, oh, you're trying to help your parents, aren't you? What do you mean? My kid ran away. Why am I trying to help my parents? This is the part that parents don't understand. The moment the kid ran away, the daughter runs away or ran away, the mom and dad unified because they had a common problem. The priorities: go find my kid, get her back. Therefore, they're not arguing anymore. Their mom and dad are
Yeah.
okay now.
Mm-hmm.
But then the daughter comes back, everything's okay. Mom and dad start arguing again. And then kids runs away. because she wants mom and dad to stop stop arguing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
And it starts with relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. So you are a specialist and you work with parents of kids that are, is this correct? Parents of kids that are 3 to 14, correct? So when, you're coming in at this critical time, so what are the overlying principles that you teach parents during this stage, those years?
The methodology I developed, and once I mentioned this, it all makes sense, right? So the key thing is you want to find connection with your kids. And because you have this connection, you have this strong bond, you set the foundation because the kids trust you.
Yeah.
Because by the time they get into teenagers, they'll come to you if they have a problem. Because as parents, we're the first line and the last line of defense.
Mm.
I've seen enough examples where I'll share with you this one. The son took away his own life. Again, I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not saying the bad parenting. I'm not saying any of that. But when your kid's life is on the line, you want the kid to come back and talk to mom and dad.
Yes.
The moment that you lose that connection, and that connection breaks over time through yelling, through shaming, through pointing fingers, especially when the kids lie,
High expectations.
high expectations, they realize they can't trust you. They can't come to you. And when they can't come to you, they go, what do? They go join gangs, go talk to their peer group. And are other 16 years old, are they able to help other 16 years old? Are they mature enough? They give them bad ideas, bad advice. Smoke weed, smoke pot, do drugs. Hey, you know what? Just drink alcohol. They'll take all your pain away.
Right.
I don't think this is what the parents want.
Mm-mm.
But because we keep on cutting off that connection, they don't want to come talk to us. So another way to think about this is we all been at work, right? And we probably had our fair number of shares of working for bad bosses. And if your boss always yells at you and you have a problem, would you go to your boss with a problem?
No way.
Because he or she's gonna yell at you first. So might as well go figure this out myself.
You're going to hide it. You're going to hide it. Right?
That
Yeah.
doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't work. So first thing we got to do, write this down, is connection. Build that connection, and that connection builds trust. There are kids are okay. They trust us. So again, what that looks like is last night. So I have the saying to my daughter: tell me the truth. When you tell me the truth, I will promise you I will not yell at you or punish you. Because that, for me, you telling the truth is most important. In the beginning, she was like, because what happened was she got a brand new iPad, and then the very next day she scratched it all up.
Oh.
Like literally scratched it all up. And I was like, I literally saw this iPad a minute ago. It was fine. Why is it all like gnawed up with all these scratches? And I couldn't. So obviously I know who did it, right? So I approached my daughter was like 4 or 5 at the time. And I was like, did you scratch this up? No, Dad. I don't know how that happened. BS, right? I already know. And I remember going back in recollection, my memory is like, moment for connection. What that looks like is, okay, well, tell me the truth. When you tell me the truth, I promise you, I will not yell at you. No, Dad, I did not scratch this. I'm like, okay, go think about it. When you're done thinking about it, come back and tell me. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, she comes over. She's like bawling. Like, what happened? I didn't do this. I don't know what happened. I'm like, okay, tell me what really happened. I won't promise you I won't yell at you. So she felt safe. She felt connected. It's like, yeah, Dad, I scratched it up. I'm like, okay, I understand. So what did you scratch it up with? Oh, I just took a scissor and I went like this.
You're just trying to oh my
Like,
gosh.
like,
Why?
right? They don't know better. So I'm like,
Nope.
okay, so I'm restraining on holding everything back because I'm just human after all. And I was like, okay, I understand what you did. And I promise you Dad's not upset at you. Okay, so let's talk about this. So look what happened now. So can you enjoy your iPad more or less? Less, Dad, because it's not all scratched up. Right. And on top of that, who's going to have to pay for it? We got to give this back to the school, right? You, Dad. Well, now you you got to live with this iPad for another year because you scratch it all up. Okay, Dad. So what is a lesson learned? Then we move on to the lesson learned. Oftentimes, the parent, there's a process to this, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, what parents do, they reverse the process. They go instructional first. And you can't do that. And when you
Yeah.
do that, think about it. When your boss comes to you with instructional, Rehan, you need to do this, and do this, and do this. What's your first immediate thought?
Like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
a lot.
And what
How
else?
do
So
I do
it's
this? It's like
a lot. And then what happens?
Get a little defensive.
You get
Yeah.
defensive and you tune out.
Mm.
Mm.
So the outcome is to get your kid to do the right thing, and they're already defensive, they're tuning out. They're not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Which happens all the time when they're teenagers, right?
Right. So my point is going back is you got to connect with them first. But
Yeah.
then the other question comes up, well, my kid is already past that critical development age, right?
Yeah.
Because your audience is most like teen, because
Mhm.
they're all like, tweenies or 14s and above. What do you do now? It's still the same fundamental thing, connection. Because when we went to Global Youth Leadership, the one thing they taught us is, hey, your job as a captain is not to be their parent.
Mhm.
Mm.
Not so what that means is don't be instructional, do this, or berate them or yell at them. Your job is to be there to listen, to connect,
Connect.
because they want to make sure that they can trust you. And what happens when they trust you? They open
They
up.
talk to you. They, oh, yeah.
They open up. They talk to you about what matters.
Mhm.
So what's beautiful about this podcast or this talk right now is we have a graduate from GYLS, Rohan. So
Rehan, in case you don't know, because I don't think most do, Rehan graduated from GYLS, Global Youth Leadership Summit, Tony Robbins Foundation for teens. And
Mhm.
he graduated 2 years. It changed his life.
Yeah.
I'm Tony Robbins as well. I'm working on senior leader. Yep. And very involved in the teen program. So keep going.
yeah. So what was like for you when somebody actually sat down and listened to you and listened to your voice? How did that impact you? How did you feel?